Today, we are talking about our top 10 games of 2023. Now, we've got a lot to get through. We're not just doing 5, we're doing 10. So we're going to full on make the whole episode about these games. Now, Deron, these are games that were released in 2023. We'll talk about some more maybe next week of games that, might be our favorites that we played that weren't released last year necessarily. But these were all released, at least according to BGG, their release date says 2023, and that's how we got our list. Are there any other disclaimers that we need to give before we get started? Any rules that you gave yourself?
Yeah, so as I was looking at this list, I wanted to make sure that I tried to pick as unique of games as possible, which is difficult because there were lots of remakes, lots of second editions, and those types of things this year, lots of standalone expansions. So it was really difficult for me to make this one. I left out second editions. I left out standalone expansions as best as possible. I left in anything that was kind of a reworking of a certain game, but maybe changed it enough or maybe created a new way to play it. And when in doubt, if BGG gave it its own separate listing, then it was fair game. And then I just had to go from there. Very subjective. What about you?
Yeah, I will say that I initially did that. I had the idea that I wouldn't put any second editions in there. And then I just couldn't leave one off the list just because I'd played it so much, and you'll hear about that one in a little while. Let's go ahead and get started, and I'll explain those as we go. But other than that, I didn't have any other like crazy rules for myself, I don't think.
Well, then let's get it to our top 10 of 2023.
All right, what you got?
So my number 10 is actually going to be higher on your list, Dean. So I'm just going to sit here and admire the grandeur of creation around us and the wonders that man hath wrought.
Funny enough, you won't get to hear a lot of those today. In fact, that's going to be the only one of those that you're going to hear because we don't have a lot of overlap, as you're going to see. Is that too much of a spoiler, maybe?
Nah, not at all. It just shows the diversity of MeepleTown.
All right, my number 10 is a game that came from DeVere Games. This was a review copy that we had. It was a follow-up to a game that I quite enjoyed from a couple years ago from designers Isra C. and Shay S. This is The White Castle. Now, if you remember, we talked about Red Cathedral, a game that I really enjoyed, I don't know, from 2-3 years ago, something like that. White Castle is a very different game, but it still follows in that same category of like small box. I have a lot of components that it's difficult to stuff everything inside the small box category. I think that's what they're going for in this series.
They have a real in on that market,
But in this one, it says on BGG it plays in about 80 minutes, but it is a dice drafting game. You have these bridges, and it has a die on either side of the bridge, the low die and the high die, and then all of the dice in between are on top of the bridge. You're going to be taking one from the low part of the bridge or the high part of the bridge, and depending on where you get that, you're going to take actions based on the number, and then you're also going to get potentially a benefit from that bridge. You're going to be taking these dice and putting them out, taking actions. In the White Castle, you're going to be going up and battling it out. You're going to be on the other side, putting them by the bridge so that you can get actions and points in between rounds. It's a fairly simple game, I would say. If you look at the board, you're going to be maybe a bit overwhelmed, but by the time you get into the game and play through, it's pretty intuitive. I think the iconography and all of that is done really well. The components are well done. The art is really pretty. All around, this has just been a big hit. I've played this one quite a few times this year, and every time I've introduced it, I think people have enjoyed it. So this will be one that's going to stay in my collection right alongside Red Cathedral. Look forward to getting more plays of this. That is White Castle.
I was looking forward to playing this one this past weekend, but you selfishly kept it at home and did not share it. So maybe one day.
We're not going to be talking about hurt feelings on this podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry. My number 9. No, my number 9 is, this is one that I was very excited to demo 2 Gen Cons ago. And from one of the most illustrious designers we have amongst us today, This is The Fox Experiment, a roll and write driven Euro game from Elizabeth Hargrave and Jeff Frazier, put out by Pandasaurus. And again, you've heard us talk about this. This one is based on the Russian domestication experiments that started back in the 1950s, where you're drafting mama and papa foxes that have certain trait dice on them, and you're collecting all those dice and you're rolling them to form symbols that will create new traits on your pup cards. And then you're going to collect these trait tokens to upgrade your experiments that you're trying to complete. And you're going to complete some study cards for points. And you've also got these pups that you're working on that you're breeding that will now become the new parents in the next round. There's lots of science cards. They're going to give you some points, but also help you break the rules if you do spend them. You can build some relationships with patrons. They're going to give you some in-game bonuses. This game was just so much fun. Sometimes the round length can go a little long. It can lengthen, because you're breeding more pups as the rounds go on. You're going to breed not just one, but maybe two or maybe three, and you're going to have to roll dice for all of those and record traits for all those and roll more dice. But most of the actions in this game are simultaneous, which helps a ton. This may be my favorite Elizabeth Hargrave design so far. It's very clever. It's very fun. Everyone who I've played with has enjoyed this game, even you, Dean. And that's why that's my number 9, The Fox Experiment.
Yeah, great pick. That's a lot of fun. My number 9 is a game that I don't believe you have played, but this was quite a big surprise for me this past year. That is Tales from the Red Dragon Inn. Now, this is in the series of Red Dragon Inn, which I've not played any of those, but this one is a cooperative dungeon crawl, which I don't really know much about the other ones to know if they fall in that category as well. But it's story driven. The dice mechanism in this one is really fun. It has exploding dice, which I enjoy quite a bit. The way that your like the cooldown track, it's not a track, but the cooldown mechanism in this game is really cool, where you can take actions, but you're going to have to put counters on those actions, and you may or may not be able to take those actions again right away. It's going to take some time for some of those to heat back up. But the way that you build the characters up and their the way that the story unfolds and how the game plays out, this has just been a really big hit for me this year, and it is a little bit lower on my top 10 than I initially thought that it would be. However, it's just ended up being a really good year, a much better year than I anticipated. But maybe on any other year, this may have been much higher on the list. But I've quite enjoyed this one. That's from Slugfest Games. It's not a cheap game, but I think for all the stuff that you get in the box, there's a lot. There's a lot to play through in this one. So that is my number 9, Tales from the Red Dragon Inn.
I thought that was going to be a top 3 for you. I was wrong.
Close,
Must
close.
must
Top
have been a
10.
good year. Yeah. All right. So my number 8 is again one we've mentioned in the past. This was a game that Dean and I played for the first time sitting there at Game Point Cafe. This has all the feelings of Feld, but it's not. This is Nova Roma by Stan Kordonsky. Art by The Micho. It's beautiful. Published by Half a Kingdom Games, which is Stan's company. It's a worker placement area majority game where you're helping Constantine establish his new capital of New Rome. So on your turn, you're sending out your 3 patrician meeples out to the forum, which is a 4x4 selection grid surrounded by 8 action tiles. And so you're going to be taking at least 2 actions every turn, and the strength of those actions are going to grow depending on how many of your patricians, or maybe even the emperor, are in the same row or column as the patrician you just put out. This is one of those games that's got lots of little mini games, I guess you might say, like you're racing in the hippodrome, or you're growing your own estate, or you're building and sailing, or you're recruiting characters to your tableau, to your own personal area. So there's lots of different things that you can do, lots of different actions you can take, and no one does the mini games better than Stan, in my opinion. Guys like him and Johnny Pack and others are just really making this almost its own new genre of Euro, and I really enjoy it. Nova Roma might be my new Trajan, and that's why it's my number 8, Nova Roma.
Great pick. This was a really fun one. I enjoyed this one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Compared it to Trajan as well, but they're very much their own games for sure.
Yep.
All right, my number 7 is the exception to the list. I mentioned that I wasn't really putting second editions on there, but I felt like this one was different enough, and it made me enjoy this game a lot more than the first edition, and that is Santa's Workshop second edition. This is from Keith Ferguson, Elf Creek Games published this one. And a couple things that I really like about this one versus the other one is putting the ornaments onto the Christmas tree. You have the difference in the reindeer stable stuff that's going on, and then a couple other things that change it up. The other thing I like, there's issues with the production with my copy of the game, and I have not been able to get those fixed yet. I sent off for a while back and still haven't received the replacement parts for this, but the production of this one for what they're trying to accomplish is pretty good. I think I would have liked to have seen some cubes in there instead of the cardboard counters for the resources and all that. But I think it made the game a lot. It did. It made the game a lot cheaper the way they did this. But the production for the price point is really good, and I'm thankful for that because I think it's going to get the game in a lot of other people's hands. Hopefully, this will be in some big box stores, and a lot more people can play this next Christmas. But for us, for my family, we played this one a ton during the Christmas break, and I can't wait to get it to the table more. This is one that I'm going to trick out the components for. I reached out to MeepleSource and said, "Hey, make some cool meeples for this, and we'll see what happens there." But I love this game a lot. That is Santa's Workshop Second Edition.
Yeah, great pick. This would have been an honorable mention for me. I just left it off because of the second edition tag. My number 7 is a Mind Clash game that we played actually the same day that we played Nova Roma back at Game Point. Dean, my number 7 is Septima. And this is where you are leading your witch coven and trying to collect the most wisdom in order to be the new high witch. At the beginning of each round, every player can discuss what cards they're going to play and then simultaneously select and reveal an action card from their hand. And if anyone matches with the Septima, they can take bonus actions, these matching actions. But of course, that's going to raise their suspicion level, which means they're more apt to lose a witch from their coven to the witch hunters because they're out and about. They're trying to get you. And you're also moving your witches around the board, collecting resources and brewing potions and healing villagers and trying to influence the outcome of witch trials to set those captured witches free. One of the cool things about this, it's got a few modules you can add in. One of those lets your witch change into an animal, which gives you some different powers and different limitations, but also some extra stuff you can do. This has a really fun solo mode from David Turtsey, and it's got spiders in it, so what's not to love about that. I love the art in this. I love the theme. This kind of a card play is always going to be a winner for me. That's why Septima is my number 7.
Excellent pick. All right, my number 7 is a game that we got to play in the at the MeepleTown retreat this past weekend, and this is a Vladimir Suki game, Evacuation. Now, this is a designer that I have come to love over the years. Many of the designs in the past several years have made my top 10 list. This one being no exception. This one, you are taking cards, which, if you're just playing the base game, the cards really don't matter. They're just markers for taking actions. You're going to place them on your board and take an action. The actions are pretty simple overall. The game, it might seem a little complex the first playthrough, but I think overall the mechanisms of it are pretty simple. You're just going to take an action. A lot of those actions are, I should probably say the theme. The theme is you are starting off on a world. You're building resources, but you're evacuating this planet because it's being destroyed, probably because of all of the resources that you're taking from the planet. You're going to be moving to a new planet. So you're evacuating this old one and you're trying to move things over to this new planet and kind of establish a new colony over there. It's interesting because there's a balance in what you're trying to do. You want to make sure that you can still have enough resources that you're producing in the old world because you kind of need those at times. And then you're also wanting to produce in the new world, but maybe not too soon before you can start taking actions with the energy. There's a lot to the synergy between those planets. And you also have a satellite that you're moving or two satellites that you're moving to the new planet. And that kind of determines some of the actions that you can take on the old planet versus the new planet, which is interesting, or some of the different terrains that you can establish your settlements on in the new planet. Really interesting game. Again, really simple concepts of the actions that you're taking. You're going to be building. You're going to be building ships. You're going to be hauling things over to the new planet, building up technologies. There's a really cool tech track on this one that I enjoy quite a bit. A lot to really love from a designer that I would say it is a top 5, probably a top 3, maybe a top 2 designer that is Evacuation, my number my number 7, Evacuation.
Good call. Yeah, and good pick. I did enjoy this one. This is one I'd like to play more. It kind of hurt my brain a little bit. It makes you think about gaming a little bit differently as you're trying to deconstruct and reconstruct. But very enjoyable. Want to play it some more. Like I want to play my number 6 more. And this is one that I feel like I may catch a little flack on, but you know what? That's okay. Because I love fun. And so many of these games were so close and so hard to rank, but oftentimes what won out was going to be the type of game that I could easily put down with other people and us have a lot of fun very quickly. And so my number 6 is Camel Up, the card game. This is a tried and true classic game of Camel Up in card game form. The camels are still racing and stacking, and you're still betting on legs and into the game winners and losers. But now the track is cards. There's only one crazy camel, which is running backwards. And this game is all about the hand and the deck management. Instead of rolling dice to determine which camels are going to move and how far, you are playing cards. For each leg, each player will determine which camel movement cards will go into the racing deck. And then on your turn, you're flipping over a camel movement card and maybe taking one or more of those betting cards. So there's a lot of above the table manipulating of other players and their strategy and the card play. And yeah, it doesn't have the same table presence as its predecessor, but I personally think this one is more fun, more strategic, and definitely more portable. And that's why my number 6 is Camel Up, the card game.
Excellent. Fun version of this game for sure. My number 6 is something that is maybe the theme is not quite as lighthearted as camels racing in the desert, but it is a theme of gangsters fighting during Prohibition. This is Scarface 1920, where you are leading a gang of mobsters and raising a criminal empire in Chicago 1920s. This is from designers Tony Sanfirm and Daniel Simon, and from Reds and Games. They kickstarted this a couple years ago. Got this in. I actually just got this one to the table. It was on my list of Shelf of Shame games that I really wanted to make sure that I got played out. I definitely wanted to get this one played before we did this list because I had a hunch that it would make my list. This is not an easy game to play the first time through for sure. There's a lot going on with the amount of actions that you can take. You're having to move around a lot of pieces and know a lot of different rules. And on top of that, you need to be able to kind of have an idea of the cards that you're going to be putting into your deck. This has some slight deck building aspect to it, maybe kind of like an endless winner-esque, where you're not really shuffling through your cards all that much, but you are gaining them into your deck, and you take actions from those cards. So you kind of need to have an idea of what those actions are, but you're also taking actions on top of those actions every turn, and that's kind of it. But you're going around and you are running a mob and doing gangster things. And the cool thing about this one, and you'll hear us talk about this one compared to another big game that I've enjoyed in the past, that's Godfather. The cool thing about this one is there's lots of different paths that you can take, and I like that. I like that you can you can really focus on kind of building up your deck of your associates. You can focus on building building up your empire. Building up things in your neighborhood. There's lots of cool different things that you can be doing. We'll talk about this when we do a full-on review of this at some point. But just know I really like this one. The theme's really cool, but the gameplay really does back it up. It just might be a little bit of an effort to put into learning it. That is Scarface 1920, my number 6.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I enjoyed playing that one as well. Looking forward to getting it back to the table. Just hope it's less punishing because we had some crazy events happen and take
That
place.
we did. That we did. We'll talk about that in the review. I started to mention
Yeah.
that one, but we'll hold off on it.
My number 5 is more of a head-to-head two-player game, pretty pure deck builder, so a little bit more streamlined deck builder here than some of the games like Scarface or Endless Winter. This one is just deck building from Fantasy Flight Games. That is Star Wars deck building game, where one of you is the rebels and one of you is the Empire, and you're trying to destroy 3 of your opponent's bases. Again, pretty typical of deck building here, where you're trying to use cards to buy better cards and attack your opponent. But one of the twists, though, is that you can also attack your opponent's cards in that market row before they can buy them. And if you can destroy them, then you get a variety of benefits from that. Um, just that change alone, I feel like adds a whole new level of interesting decisions. And then on top of the fact that when your starting base is destroyed, you will then choose which base to put out into play next. And each of your bases will have different various abilities that may coincide with whatever strategy that you're going for. There's also a force track that you're moving up and down that can give you some benefits. It is a lot of fun. Again, maybe my favorite pure deck builder here. And that's why my number 5 is Star Wars deck building game.
Good pick. This is a fun one. Played this one. It seems like this one's been out a while, but I guess it was
Mhm.
2023. It's just been a while since I've played it.
That's what's hard about some of those 2023 games that come out in January and February. It's easy to forget them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, my number 5, and you mentioned this moving into top 5. These got to be great games that we're putting in here, right?
Word.
My number 5 is a reimagining of a game that I love called Scythe. Scythe is a top 5 game for me. We've done a review, or I've done a review of this one, Expeditions, on the podcast a while back, and I talked about how much I really love this one. Not as much as Scythe, but the 2-player version of this one, I actually probably prefer to play Expeditions at 2 players in solo. I probably prefer to play both this at both of those player counts over Scythe. But Expeditions kind of has the same or a similar feel. It's in the same universe. You have this hex world that you are exploring. You start off in these actions that you can take, moving to the tiles, taking the actions, and that's based on the kind of the action marker that you're moving to be able to take the action. So moving the action marker allows you to take 2 to 3 actions, like moving or taking the actions or playing a card or whatever. And from those actions, you really are just trying to do some of the same Scythe things of getting the stars out. And the first one to get the stars out is going to be triggering the end of the game. It has the same tension that Scythe has, and that's why I like this one so much. It doesn't have the combat that you have in Scythe, which some people would really miss that. For me, I felt like I didn't miss it as much as I thought I would, because you still had the same tension of racing to get these stars out and racing to be the first one to to finish up. But that tension felt very strong because all the turns, just like Scythe, are very fast. You take your turn, someone else takes their turn. It's back and forth, and it's I want to do this before they get this done, and it's really cool. I've enjoyed this one quite a bit, and yeah, that's a big win for me. My number 5, Expeditions.
Yeah, good pick. Really enjoyed playing Expeditions. My number 4 is not best at 2 players like Expeditions. My number 4 is going to be better the more people you can get around the table. This is a 3 to 7 player game by the great good doctor Reiner Knizia, produced by Bitewing Games and lovely art by Kwanchai Moria. This is Vadis. Again, technically, yes, it's a remake of Quo Vadis, and I was trying to leave off those types of game. But this one, from what I understand, I've never played a Quo Vadis. I understand that this one has changed the game enough that it feels like its own deal. And again, when in doubt, I defer to BGG and whatever the dice tower says. And so this one is where you are playing a group of animals in a zoo and you're trying to become the zoo mascot. And you do that by getting at least one of your animals to the star exhibit by the end of the game and by having the highest total of laurel tokens. And you're going to pick up those tokens as you move from exhibit to exhibit, but you can't move your animals from one exhibit to the next unless you have the majority of votes from the other animals in that exhibit. However, you can get the zookeeper to let you move out for free. Or maybe you can bribe the peacocks for their votes because, they just wander around anyway, all bunch of cocky preeners. I've never had a game like this and wanted a pure negotiation game. I didn't know if I would like this when I got it. I love it. It's everything that I hoped it would be and more. Everyone should play it. It both brings friends together and destroys them. My number 4, Zuvadis.
Yeah, this is the only one on your list that I have not played, and one that I started to ask you to bring when we got together because I think I would really like this one too. We're just gonna have to make this one happen at some other point. It sounds cool.
Yeah, we got to get some others to get in there with us because the more the merrier.
Okay. All right, well, let's make that happen. My number 4 is the first overlap that I have with Darren, the only overlap that we have together, and that is World Wonders. Darren taught me this over the Christmas break. This is a polyomino game where you have tracks as well. So polyominoes, check. Tracks, check. This is bound to be a winner for Dean, I think. But in this one of the tracks that you have is your money track, and so you're going to be spending money to buy tiles, which are cities to put out onto your board, or buy roads, or to eventually buy wonders, buy these towers, lots of different things that you're buying, putting them out onto your board. That part is a little bit tricky because the way they line up really matters for points and all of that, but also for making sure that you're not cheating, because it's really easy in this game to put things in the wrong place, and then especially your first time playing, and then have to go back and say, "Well, I messed up there, and I don't know if I can fix this. My bad. Let's just keep playing." But it gets better and better. In my experience, it's gotten better and better as time has gone on. The game has also just gotten better. I love this one so much. My wife really enjoys this one, which is always a big plus. Big hit for me. This one could have gone higher, and maybe at the end of the day, this one might be the one that wins out over all the games as far as which one's getting played the most. Who knows? Why do you like this one?
Yeah, everything you said, I would agree with. The polyomino tile drafting and the limited drafting is like once somebody takes something, it's gone. I love that kind of tension. The way that the way the gold spending works. You can buy multiple things, and you may even pick up a wonder at a bargain of 1 gold, or maybe you just have to have something and you spend all your gold right off the beginning. And trying to take the loans and manage that. And how that's going to affect your points, the population manipulation, the fact that you scored the lowest resource at the end, whatever your lowest resource is, those are the points you're going to get from those. And yeah, the monuments are just cool. It's got a really fun solo mode. It can run along multiplayer, but man, like you said, it keeps going up for you. It keeps going up for me. It just squeaked onto the list at first, but really, I think it could keep moving up. That just because of its ease of play and its approachability, you can play this with just about anyone, and that's what makes it so great, I think.
Yeah, I agree. One of the big complaints that I hear about this one is the fact that the monuments only, or the wonders monuments, the same thing, I guess, only have 1 point on them. There might be some exceptions to that, but they're not, a huge amount of points necessarily that you're getting from those. But there's other benefits that you're gaining, and for me, I didn't see that as a negative. I saw it. Maybe it's because they called it World Wonders. Maybe they could have called it something else, and that would have made people feel better. But overall, I just there's so much to like about this game. Good times.
Yep.
My number
Agreed.
4, your number 10, World Wonders.
My number 3 is this my I believe it is. This is my first cooperative game on the list. Everything else has been competitive. This is a co-op game, but generally this type of game is not a co-op game. This is a new playing mode for Unmatched. This is Unmatched Adventures Tales to Amaze. I could have put a lot of the other Unmatched sets on here, but I didn't because they were standalone kind of expansions. But this one is different. This is a co-op version of Unmatched, again by Restoration Games. And I love it because it's completely cross-compatible with all the other sets of Unmatched. The heroes in this one are Nicholas Tesla and Annie Christmas and the Golden Bat and Jill Trent. And here you're going up against Mothman or Martian invaders. So the board is double-sided. One side goes for Mothman, one side for the Martian invaders, and they both play differently. There's a number of minions that are going to be a part of that too, that you'll kind of draft at the beginning. People like or things, minions, creatures like the Jersey Devil, the Blob, the Skunk Ape, just the most fun to say. And again, the heroes play the same, just as the rest of the Unmatched characters. You've got your deck of 30 cards, and those cards are going to let you move or attack or scheme. And every character, heroes or villains, they have their own initiative cards, and that initiative card is going to determine what the player order is, because you're going to flip those cards out at the beginning of each round. So that's going to change each round. And the villain cards will also have some special abilities and maybe some in-round powers that may activate. It's very versatile. It's very tactical. It's quite challenging. It's not very easy. And it's a lot of fun. And of course, the art is beautiful. It is Unmatched. It's cooperative Unmatched. What more can you ask for? Unmatched Adventures, Tales to Amaze, my number 3.
Yeah, we talked about how we don't have a lot of overlap on our list. However, there's a lot on Darren's list that are just outside my top 10, this being one of them. I really, really enjoy this one quite a bit. Added this to my collection this year, and I have not been disappointed by any of the Unmatched stuff that I added to my collection this year. Great pick, Darren. My
I know.
number 3 is a game that we got to play together. This is Last Light. This is from designer Roy Kennedy from Dice Tower, and the big push for this one was that this is a 4X game that you can play in an hour or less, and you can also play this one up to, well, 8 players, I think, with the expansion. I only have the base game of this, although I'm going to be picking up some of the new stuff for the game found that's going on right now. But this is a game where I'm going to pick a card, you're going to pick a card, and we're going to reveal at the same time and then take the actions on those cards. And for the most part, you can take your actions at the same time too, which is really nice. It means the game moves along very, very quickly. But the things that you're going to be doing in this game, which is a sci-fi space exploration game where you're going to be exploring these different planets, you're going to mining the resource from them. When you go to those different planets, you can get things immediately from them, but also you're going to be producing later on, getting technologies. You're going to be moving your ships around, building your ships, moving them around, and really getting to the center because you're trying to be the first one to get 20 light from a dying star. Eventually, everything's going to die off anyway, and it doesn't matter. But it's nice to play a game in the meantime of gathering the light from that dying star. Really, really cool. I love this one, and it really does do what it seeks to do, and that is provide this great 4X experience in an hour. It's not as grandiose as some of other games like this that I've played, like the like Eclipse or anything like that, but it does still give you that feel, and you don't have to have it set up for a really long time. You can also teach this one pretty quickly. The rule book is they're making some changes to the rule book. There's some confusing pieces in that, but overall, the rule set is pretty easy, and that's why this one made it pretty high on my list at number 3. That is Last Light.
Yeah, good pick. I enjoyed playing this one and looking forward to play it more. One of the things I liked about Last Light were how some of those tech cards you get make you feel so powerful so quickly,
Yeah.
which is very similar to my number 2, which also makes you feel pretty powerful pretty quickly. And that is Marvel Zombies, a zombicide game. And I know, yes, this is a game that's existed before, but like I said, this is a new way to play it. This is zombicide, where you are the zombies. But you're not just any zombies. You are zombie superheroes like Captain America and Captain Marvel and Iron Man, Wasp and Hulk and Deadpool. So this is inspired by the Marvel Zombie comic run and probably fueled by some of the Marvel What If series like on Disney Plus that included some of the zombie stories, which again, though the What If cartoons, highly recommend. But the game has several scenarios that build off of each other, kind of like a campaign, but you don't have to play it that way if you don't want. But you're trying to complete objectives and eat other superheroes, as well as shield agents. I mean, who wouldn't want to? And innocent bystanders. And when you eat others, you don't like gain items like you have in some of the other zombicide games. You gain traits from your victims, and you become more and more powerful. But the main crux of the game is that hunger track that's going to go up each round. And when it does, the hungrier you are, the more dice you get to roll when you attack people. But if your hunger track maxes out, you then become overcome with your hunger, which then limits your actions. Like at that point, you can only just move and eat. You become more of a mindless zombie at that point. So you have to do things to lower that back down. So yeah, and so the more that you lose yourself to your hunger, you can start losing health. So again, this game is very streamlined. Like I said, you feel very powerful, very fast. And I've not played all the Zombicide games. I've only played a few, but from what I hear from others that have, this is one of the best ways to play it, if not the best. And that's why it is my second best game from 2023, Marvel Zombies, a Zombicide game.
Hmm. Yeah, you saying it that way, Darren? Maybe I should play this one. I love Zombicide. I love Marvel. I don't love the What If series. I like some of the What If stuff, but I did not like the Zombies one personally.
Well, it can't all be
So
perfect.
yeah, but I still might really like this game. Who knows? Who
I
knows?
think you
Might
would.
be
I tried to make you play it. Maybe one day.
might be a banger for me. So my number 2 is a game that almost didn't make my list because I didn't realize that this came out in 2023, but that's what it's listed as on BGG. For some reason, I thought I had played this in 2022. That is a game by designer Maxime Tardif called Earth. Earth is a tableau builder, and if you've listened to MeepleTown really at all, you'll know that I really love these tableau builders, meaning you're taking these cards from your hand, putting them out into this configuration in front of you. In this game, you've got a 4x4 grid that you're going to put cards out onto, and the placement really matters in this one and how things trigger based on the position of the actions that you're going to take, and based on position for points and um, setting off cards. Lots of cool things that you can do for this one. You're also going to be it's difficult. There's lots of ways to get points in this. You can build up your little stack of growth, which are this little pillar that's going to be appearing on the card that you're building up. This almost like this bamboo pillar kind of thing. You're going to be getting points from the cards. The cards will get points from configuration of other cards on your board. Lots of cool things going on in this one. I've played this one a lot, especially on Board Game Arena this year. This is one that's been hitting the table quite a bit there, but I also have a copy of this one, so the physical copy is really fun as well. Great production on this one. Yeah, it's a big hit for me. Really almost didn't make the list just because I didn't realize it came out this year. I've played it a ton. That is Earth, my number 2.
Very nice. That one never really spoke to me. I think I'd rather play something a little smaller and quicker, like a Forest Shuffle. But, you know, to each their own. I'm glad you enjoy the planet Earth.
Yeah, this one is listed as at 45 to 90 minutes, by the way.
Did it
Um,
feel like that?
I don't really know how to answer that question. Either it was or it wasn't, Darren. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I don't think it's not a super long game in my
Okay.
experience.
Very cool.
Yeah. Not
I
Forest
do
Shuffle quick, but still not super long.
I do love the art. It does look beautiful.
Yep.
Speaking of beautiful games, actually, this game is not beautiful. This game is very rugged. This game is vicious, but it's also fun. In the dictionary, beside the word fun, there is a picture of my favorite game of 2023, and it's from Restoration Games, and that's Thunder Road Vendetta Maximum Chrome Edition. Again, another game that has been redone just enough to make it its own thing. It's not the 80s Thunder Road. This is Thunder Road Vendetta. This is Mad Max the board game, or as I like to refer to it, a post-apocalyptic Mario Kart. Makes it sound a little softer and more approachable. Yes, technically this is a racing game, but really you're there to blow each other up or to smash someone into a mountain or knock them down a ravine. This is a raucous roll and move game where you can assign one of your dice to one of your 3 cars, and there you can activate them and make them move, or you can activate one of their special abilities like calling in a choppa to shoot your opponents or perhaps accidentally shoot yourself. The Maximum Chrome edition adds some expansions and other bits that can give you more interesting road hazards to destroy each other, or maybe again even yourself. It also gives you some leaders with some asymmetrical abilities that can change things up, and of course, it adds the big rig expansion and the motorcycle expansion. It's just it's so cinematic. It's the most cinematic and emergent story game that I played all year. All kinds of stories come out of every time that we've played this. Even our 10-minute first play of this, Dean, followed by our hour-long play of it afterwards. This really is the wildest ride in the wastelands, and it's my favorite game from 2023. Thunder Road Vendetta, specifically the Maximum Chrome Edition.
Yeah, now you're not going to hear about our honorable mentions today. We're going to get to those next week. Just know that this one is very high. Spoiler, it's the next one off of my list. I'm pretty sure. I'm not looking at it right now, but I'm pretty sure this was number 11. Oh, this is such a good one. Such a good game, but in a great year. I mean, there's a lot of good games that came out. So, great pick. This is a lot of fun. Exactly the way you just described it. That is correct. All right, my number 1 is a big surprise for me. If you said at the beginning of the year, Dean, your number 1 game of the year is going to be a solo only game, I would say you're off your rocker, as the kids say these days.
Nobody says it.
Okay. All right. This is a Shem Phillips design from Garfield Games. That is Legacy of You. This is in the Ancient Anthology series with Hadrian's Wall and the oh my goodness, I can see the game. I can't think of the name of the other one that has been released. This is the third one of that series. The other one was basically Explorers of the North Sea
Like Raiders
remake.
of Scythia.
Raiders of Scythia. Thank you, Darren. I was gonna have to look it up, and I didn't want to have to do that. But this one is solo only, but it has feels of Hadrian's Wall in a sense. But basically, you are building this canal. It's story driven, which is not the big reason why I like this game. Although the story is better than I thought it was going to be, and the way that everything comes out. But basically, you're trying to beat this game 7 times, meaning that you're going to keep building the canal until you finish the canal. Okay, that's kind of the gist of this game. But if you lose 7 times, you're going to lose this. And every time you win a game, something bad is going to come into play. Every time you lose a game, every time something good is going to come in and help you along, which is really cool because it's a lot of different things that can be coming into play. Like the negative things that come out are a lot of times barbarians that will come in. Barbarians are always going to be in the game, but you have these worse barbarians come in as the better you do in the game. And then you have these story things that trigger along the way. But a lot of it is collecting. Again, this is the part that's a lot like Hadrian's Wall. You're going to be collecting resources based on the engine that you've built. Every round, you'll collect all these resources and the cards, and you're going to do the best you can with what you have. The whole time, this wave of water is coming along and it's forcing you to build this canal. And if you don't, eventually you're going to lose if the water overtakes you or if the barbarians overtake you. Really, really cool game. I just keep going back to this one and back to this one a lot. I've played it quite a bit over the year, this past year, and I don't think that's going to change. And in fact, this series in general, if you looked at our top 50 this past year, two of the three were on the list, and one was just outside my top 50. Really love all these games. Looking forward to what's to come and the new games that are coming out in this series. But for right now, Legacy of You tops those and is my favorite game of 2023.
That is wild. I knew you were really hype on this game early on. I knew it'd be a top 10, but wow, number one. That's some crazy stuff. You and your solo-ness.
Yeah, before this year, I don't think I've been a really big solo player, but I don't know. Some games like this have really pushed me in that direction. So yeah, it was hard to leave this one off the list for sure. But I just kept thinking, what would I rather play, and what have I been picking over other games? And this one it just kept showing up at the table. So yeah, big hit for me. My number one is Legacy of You. Connect with us on social media. If you have any questions for the mailbag, send those to meepletownmail@gmail.com. And until next time, thanks for coming down to MeepleTown.
Later.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks to our Patreon supporters for making content like this possible. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, go to patreon.com/MeepleTown. To follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, find us at MeepleTown Games. Finally, to connect with us and other residents of MeepleTown, you can join Guild 3407 at BoardGameGeek.com. Until next time, thanks for coming down to MeepleTown.